Welcome into another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, you need a second car, an RV, a utility vehicle. North Toronto Auction may have what you're looking for. The Auto Auction Centre celebrating its 20th anniversary this weekend. We take a look back. Wonder how many cars they've sold. Big event this weekend for the Season Centre for Grieving Children in Barrie. We get the details on that, including an auction, and find out more about what the centre is all about. House fire a couple of weeks ago in Alliston might have been deadly, but for a couple of young men who were passing by and risked their lives to save a couple of others, we meet one of them and get their story. Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall makes his monthly visit to What Barrie's Talking About, and the Barrie Baycats are gearing up for the coming season. The brass thinking they made the off-season moves needed to bring the Intercontinental Baseball League Championship back to Barrie. But first, the Barrie Colts Skate Out of Championship came to an end this week. They forced a Game 7 in their Eastern Conference semifinal, took the early lead on North Bay in that game, but could not hold the battalion off the board. A disappointing end to what was an exciting season. Barrie 360's Will Konken takes a look back with Colts broadcaster Gene Pereira.
So, a tough way to end the season for the Colts. Game 7 in North Bay, Barrie lost 3-1, season over. The Colts were looking good heading into the third in this game, up 1-0. Penalties were an issue for the club. What are your initial thoughts, Gene?
Yeah, I think you look back, and I think this is one of these games that they felt they really could have won. And, you get into these Game 7 scenarios where really anything can happen. And, Barrie was playing, one of their best games of the series. I mean, they had really shut down North Bay offensively. They were up 1-0, and there's no doubt that they wanted to get some insurance, but I think two quick penalties, two quick power plays for North Bay, and, they capitalize on both, and good teams do that. The battalion did that, and then they get an empty netter. But I think, a bit of disappointment, in talking to Marty Williamson and Brant Clark. Obviously, they weren't happy with the calls. There's a bit of sourness there. With their feeling, they were in control of that hockey game. But I think this is pretty much what people expected in this series, is for it to go full length and to be that close. I mean, these two teams are really evenly matched. But I think at the end of the day, even though that Marty and the guys don't like to use excuses, because you got to go on with who you got in the lineup. But there's no doubt that this team just couldn't get healthy. I mean, right from day one, Cardwell and Vierling and Punnett were out of the lineup, and they couldn't get healthy. And the loss of Vierling and then Jelsma for a game in this series, a few games in the first round, just really caught up to him. And when you look at it, I think there was a real difference. I think the series would have been over earlier had they been fully healthy.
Yeah, it was a lot of ups and downs, and I guess, unfortunately, they lost, but it was a very exciting series. And then now, looking forward for the Colts this offseason, they're losing some players and some decisions to be made for the club. What do the Colts need to address right away?
Yeah, I think you're going to look. I mean, this is a team that's going to go through some changes. First and foremost, obviously, you lose your overagers. For Ethan Cardwell, he signed with San Jose. He'll start his pro career. I think for Declan McDonald and Evan Vierling, two kind of warriors. Tough way for Evan to end his career on the sidelines, but there's a hope there that he was going to sign a pro contract. But I think without a doubt, he's going to get an invite, to NHL camps, and the hope there is that he turns some heads. He had a big time year; he really earned it. And, hopefully you see him get a chance. And the same for McDonald, who was just outstanding in the playoffs. And, again, it was drafted by Tampa Bay, didn't sign, went to Buffalo camp, and, the hope that he'll get another look, but just a hard worker. So, obviously, you have those guys. And, with their departure, they take a ton of scoring with him. And I think that's going to be Barrie's biggest hole to fill next year when you look at it. You got those three. You start in the back end and goal. I think Anson Thornton's probably going to move on to pro hockey, signed by Arizona as well. Ben West can be an overager, but you're only allowed 3 overage. So the situation, they're going to have to look at that with, the likes of Braden Hache if he doesn't sign with Florida. and, Jacob Frasca, Tyler Savard, Connor Punnett. I mean, you can only have 3 OAs, so they're going to have a decision to make there about who they keep and who they decide to move. As well, coming back next year, obviously, Bo Gels will be a big part. We saw Bo Wen and Carter Lowe take steps, but I think scoring is going to be this team's biggest Achilles. I think you'll take a little bit of a step back as they rebuild, and the hopes is they get Edward Saleh over from Europe, and that'll certainly help with their scoring for next season. But when you go through, this will be a different roster, a younger roster. I think probably you might see Hillebrand take over in net. And again, I mean, the blue line should be still pretty good. They're going to have Bo Akey, and obviously Brian Clark will go on, move on with the Los Angeles Kings organization. But, they should still have, possibly Punnett and Hache back there. Grayson Tiller should be healthy and recover from his shoulder surgery. And Keyshawn Aitchison is kind of an exciting guy back there. And, we saw near the end of the year there, in a couple of games, there's a lot of potential there, and he'll get a chance. So I think the blue line should be fairly decent next year. But when you move up front, it's the big question of it's always tough to replace skilled scorers like Veerling and Cardwell and so on. But that'll be the big question up front for the Barrie Colts next season: is where do they get their scoring?
Yeah, it was a really fun and entertaining season through the ups and downs and everything. And it'll be interesting to see what actually happens going forward. Well, Gene, we really appreciate the Colts' insight throughout the season. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, guys, and it was a great year. And like I said, look, I mean, next year a younger team, but it's always exciting to see those guys develop. And like I said, Colts hockey was a great season. A little bit of a disappointing end here, but there's no doubt a ton of entertainment, and looking forward to next year already.
Couple of young men being recommended for civilian citations after coming to the rescue of an elderly woman and another young man this month when their Alliston home caught fire. A twist of fate put Cole Hodgston and Ben Sawyer in the right place at the right time. Cole recounting the story for you and Barrie 360's MJ.
What exactly happened? I know you were driving with Ben, correct?
Yeah, I was training Ben, and we'd gotten done at the gym, and I was dropping him off at his girlfriend's house. But he forgot his dinner, and he didn't live that far away. He lived like a minute away. So I was like, yeah. He was like, hey man, like I forgot my dinner. Like, can you bring me back to my house so I can grab it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I can do that. So at this point, we would have been able to like see that same house that a minute later was like burning down. But at this point, it like wasn't even on fire. Like it was probably on fire in the inside, but on the outside there was no smoke, no nothing. So took Ben back to his house. He grabbed his dinner. We came back, and over the houses you could just see like gray. Like it wasn't dark gray at this point. It was more of like the color of just like a stop sign. It was a light gray, and we seen that and we were like, oh my gosh, that's a house fire. Like there could be kids in there. So I like pulled the car over. Ben hopped out of the car before I was even like in park, and we went running to the door, and we were like banging on it, and we weren't getting a response. And then we were about to like attempt to kick down the door, but the grandson, I guess he came and he opened the door, and we were like, yo, like your house is on fire, like get out.
So they didn't even know at this point that the house was on fire?
The old lady didn't, but I think the grandson might have. He ran back into the fire for his dogs, and then we were like just in like the front area, and there was like smoke, but not like a whole lot of it. Like you could still see probably like, I don't know, maybe like 12, 15 feet in front of you at this point. It was pretty like smoky, but like you could still see. So Ben, he seen like the old lady in the chair, and she was like coughing, trying to like get up. So Ben, he took off his shirt, he put it over his mouth, and he went into the fire, and then he went up to her, and from Ben's words, he said, like, because I guess because of Alzheimer's, she didn't know what was happening. So he said to her, like, hey, like, we got to go. And she was like pushing him off, and she was like, no, like, what are you doing? And he just said to her, like, look, everything's going to be okay, but like, we got to go. Took his t-shirt off, and then he like put it over her mouth so like she wasn't inhaling smoke, and he got her out. And then once she was out of the house, like, I guess, again, because of the Alzheimer's, like, she just didn't know the house was on fire. So, like, she was trying to, like, go back in after she'd gotten out, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, my house isn't on fire. And I was like, hey, like, you can't go back in there. Like, it's not safe. Mm-hmm. So after that point, like, people had started, like, showing up. 911 had been called. At this point, the whole house was, like, up in flames. Like, you couldn't even see a foot in, like, where we could see, like, 15 feet in front of us before. You couldn't even see, like, a full foot in front of you because the smoke was, like, that dark.
So it was literally like, so say a minute you drove past the house to get Ben his dinner, and then 2 minutes later you're driving by and you see the smoke, and then maybe 5 minutes after all this happened, the house is fully engulfed. Is that just such a? We always know that house fires can spread fast, but this is crazy.
Oh yeah. No, like, well, and the thing is too, like, when people say like, oh, like, the smoke's the most dangerous part, like, you think about it, because before this I was a welder, and when I was a welder, like, I did it for a whole month without a respirator, so I was inhaling, like, smoke with, like, metal in it for a whole month. Not a good decision. I don't recommend. But I was doing that, and, like, probably about after, like, a month of doing that, I was getting, like, shortness of breath. No word of a lie, with me being in there for, like, within, like, I don't know, 20 seconds, and just being around that smoke, like, you could, like, really feel it in your chest. Like, Ben was saying that from him being, like, deep inside the fire, it felt like pins and needles in his chest. So it really is scary.
And good on Ben, it must have been instinctual. Like, when we were talking here, like, would we think to take off our shirts and put it over our nose? Is it just instinctual? Like, we know it's a smart thing to do, but, you know, it's kind of like just because it's such a simple thing. But would we remember to do that? And especially to give it to her, right?
No, 100%. And honestly, I just think it was one of those things in the moment where it was like, there's not really time to, like, hesitate. It's kind of just something you got to take action on. Mm-hmm. And I think like, whether that's, like, with this fire or anything in life, like, if you hesitate with a lot of things and you don't take action on it, you'll miss out on things that could, like, save someone's life, for example. Police after the fact told me, he was saying, like, Ben and I, it was just like, what you guys did was, like, dumb, but, like, we're glad you did it, because, like, if you wouldn't have done that, like, that old lady probably wouldn't be alive right now. That is kind of scary to think about. But the police also did just say, like, everybody got out perfectly fine, not even, like, a single injury, so it went the best it possibly could have.
Our thanks to Cole Hodgson for taking the time to share his and Ben's story with us. North Toronto Auction celebrating 20 years of putting people in the driver's seat. I know people who won't buy a car anywhere else. Our Will Konken is with North Toronto's Manager of Sales, Marketing and Customer Care, James Watson.
How did the idea of North Toronto Auction get going?
First that started, I guess they came up with the idea in 2001 and managed to open the doors up here in Innisfil in 2003. The first auction that we held was April 10th, 2003. And the first car we ever sold was a 1993 Toyota Camry. Sold for $4,800. We do have a couple of dealers that were at that first auction back in 2003. They're going to be with us this Saturday, and we're going to honor them for their long-standing commitment to us.
And do you know how many vehicles you've sold over the years?
So obviously we put stock stickers on all the vehicles. We're up to 260,000 stock stickers we've used. So I would say that's roughly about the amount of vehicles that we've sold over the 20 years.
The company's probably gone through a lot throughout the years. What were some other milestones?
We were the first auction to open up for public bidding in 2007. Same time, that's when we got a couple of our larger contracts. We've been selling on behalf of the province of Ontario and the city of Toronto since 2007. And And of course, leading into 2020, we all got hit with that pandemic. We shut our doors for about 6 weeks before opening back up again. Almost out of necessity, we do collect financial repos from a variety of different banks. So they were still coming in even through the pandemic. We opened back up to the dealers first in March, or I guess it was May. We opened up to the dealers May 2020 and started again. Basically, it's like we had to build our business back up again, if you would believe it. Inventory was down. And ever since then, like just with the challenges in the automotive industry, with shortages of the new vehicles coming in, it has still been a challenge building up our inventory. So since we opened back up again, we've been slowly growing and trying to get back to our regular volumes that we had before the shutdown. One thing we had to do during the pandemic is find a way to improve our online presence and our online bidding because of all the restrictions. So we did start to host public auctions, but they were online only. Of course, everyone has restrictions to come in and inspect cars in person. They always had that option. But with all the restrictions, we just had to operate a little bit differently to make sure that they could go and check the vehicles out safely and then go back home and register to bid online, or online platform.
I saw actually as well that you guys launched, was it an app in 2021? Would you talk about more about that as well?
Yeah. So AutoGavel, mobile app, that's been in the works for a little while. But yeah, that was launched in 2021. So the idea with that app is that anybody can download it for free. And for the dealers, and even some of our select customers, they can upload vehicles from their location to sell at any of our auctions. So this is becoming more frequent, especially with the wholesale on the dealer side. A lot of dealers will list their vehicles from their location, and we'll sell them by auction on our website. So that's been going quite well. More and more we're seeing those off-site vehicles being listed for our auctions.
It's been a really full 20 years for you guys, and now that you guys are celebrating the 20th anniversary, what's going on the day on Saturday? What do you have planned?
Lots of exciting stuff planned, Will. So we got prizes and giveaways and promotions and free food for everyone that comes out and registers with us. Of course, we got hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs to sell, and a bunch of industrial equipment on Saturday as well. But yeah, we got lots of activity at 9 a.m. We're going to have opening ceremonies and honor some of the long-standing members that have been with us since that first auction. And then do a couple of early bird draws for all of the people that registered. And then, got a few promotions going on social media.
Awesome.
Give away some draws and tickets for some gift cards.
Everything's going on at your location, and where's that at?
3230 Thomas Street in Ennisville. Doors open up at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Auction starts at 9 a.m. sharp.
And then what's planned for the next 20 years now? Have you guys kind of already talked about that?
Great question. Well, we're hoping to build on the momentum here, and we do want to increase our inventory over the next few years, of course, as the industry improves. But, big plans, I think, is that with the AutoGavel app, we're looking at really expanding that service so that we can offer it on a national level and compete with some of the larger dealers for auction goods out there.
If anyone is interested in learning more about North Toronto Auction, where should they go?
They can go to our website, northtorontoauction.com, or they can always give us a call, 705-436-4111. Any of our customer care reps will be happy to help them out.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. We've covered a lot of ground since we began last July. Met stand-up comic and poet Vanessa Smythe, who brought her one-woman show to Talk is Free Theatre this week. Had a chat with singer-songwriter David Wilcox and heard from Barrie's new police chief, Rich Johnston, about how he plans to guide the service over the next few years. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any streaming service. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, the Barrie Baycats think they have the pieces in place to take a run at another championship. Mayor Alex Nuttall drops by, and we find out more about the Tender Hearts Gala and auction happening this weekend to support the Season Centre for Grieving Children. Now this.
It's cool to care.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives.
It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Cool to Care is brought to you by the Peggy Hill team, keeping it real all the way to sold. Reach out now at peggyhill.com.
It's Cool to Care with 107.5 Cool FM.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Lots of social media chatter about crime in the city, many rants about how bad the city is getting, but is it? Barrie 360's Ian McLennan puts the question to Mayor Alex Nuttall in his regular monthly visit to the podcast.
We've had a series of incidents the past few days. We had, an arson at a home. We had a stabbing on Gun Street. We had the carjacking, knife point carjacking. We had a shooting up in the Letitia Heights area. A lot of social media activity right away. Oh no, what's become of Barrie? How do you put things in perspective like that and try to, regroup and say, overall, we still live in a very safe community?
Well, I think first of all, accepting that these things are happening is the first step, in the sense that if we ignore them, I think that they become worse and worse. And so our police department's been making some changes. We've provided some more funding to the police department, but we can't measure our results based on dollars in. We need to measure our results based on what's coming of the output. So we see 2 new officers in downtown walking the streets, making sure that it is a safe place. I think you'll see some investment by the BIA in terms of welcoming folks downtown and ensuring it's a good atmosphere. The county of Simcoe is looking at a new program for the homeless, as well as those who are suffering from addictions and mental health issues in the downtown, that kind of bridges some of the security with social workers and tries to help those folks get into the appropriate support groups, which we have a plethora of in this city. Police department's working on some pretty incredible pilot projects at the moment that there will be more information coming out about in the coming months. And we are lobbying very heavily with regards to the prisoner release program from Penetang here in the city of Barrie. And I expect that we will have some positive information coming out on that in the next few months as well. And so, we need to accept that these things are happening, and we need to make some changes to ensure that they stop happening. But, this is a 10-year buildup of this issue, which COVID exacerbated very heavily. And I don't think it's going to be solved in a month or two. It's going to take a consistent approach to ensuring safety and security, and ensuring that the social services are there to help those who are in need. I think that there's a lot of folks in this town who volunteer and try to ensure that there is opportunity to have a good future and a good path forward.
Now, the chief has said, too, that technically serious crime overall in the city the past years has gone down, and sometimes what is actually happening, what the perception is, it can be different. Just because there's a group of young people or older people hanging around doesn't mean they're up to no good, so to speak, and that, relatively speaking, Barrie remains a safe community.
Well, look, I would say that I agree with the chief. However, we also need to deal with the perception. The perception means that we need to make visible, obvious choices that safety is paramount in the city of Barrie, and that there's a comfort level for folks to be downtown, quite frankly, throughout. I live not far from downtown. In fact, the stabbing on the weekend was 10 doors down from my house. And so, I think this is an issue that the whole city's facing. And certainly it's one that I'm paying attention to very closely, because, these are places where my kids are playing. And to have that type of incident there is just not good enough.
Let's stick with the downtown, but let's talk about the growth, the build in the downtown. And there have been a couple of public meetings regarding a performing arts center, or, as an architect firm that was hired by the city suggested, a community cultural hub. In both cases, the west end of the downtown, that revitalization component, there is a difference between a community cultural hub and a performing arts center. What is it?
Well, look, I think that the consultants, what they were trying to do is trying to come up with a plan that would provide a facility, but at the same time also provide a place for the arts communities to grow, to have that collaboration, to foster the environment where we're attracting more groups, attracting more audience, attracting more investment. I haven't, made any decision in any direction on this yet.
Well, council hasn't talked about it, right?
And council hasn't talked about it. And so I think that, I'll await some of the information coming from our internal staff team. And at the same time, I think that it's really important, when I was elected in October, I was told there's a downtown open market that's coming. It's ready to go. There's a performing arts center. It's coming. It's ready to go. There's rec centers in the South End, and there's all of these items. And it turns out that, on paper, they're getting close to being ready to go. But if there's no money to do the work, they are just that. They're pieces of paper. And so I think the real work that needs to be done, at the same time as these folks are putting together plans and trying to create opportunities for the future for local organizations, is that we find ways to fund these types of obviously incredible visionary items for our city center, for our core. And I think as you look into the future, we want to have these facilities. We want to have a Sadlon Arena that fits the folks who are using it and fits the community in terms of attracting more than just the Barrie Colts, although the Barrie Colts are a huge portion of that. We want to have a facility downtown that folks can go to symphonies or theatrical performances, or even have an opportunity to have convention space there as well. We want to have an open market where people feel comfortable and they can go and enjoy it, and it's that welcoming, activated atmosphere that we hear Craig Bush talk about all the time.
You're not going to please everybody.
No, you're
That's
not.
obviously.
No.
What's ideal for Alex Nuttall?
I think for me, as I look at it, I want a facility to be built. I support a facility being built. I want a place for our local arts groups to be able to find their successes and to grow, and for young people to be able to participate in the programs. I also want one that can be funded. All of this is imaginary unless we have the money to do it. And so I think, my job and the job of council over time is to take these dreams and turn them into reality. And for too long, we've been talking about dreams. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the Performing Arts Center or the market.
We would like to have.
Yes, exactly. And so we need to have the implementation, the rubber hits the road. And so I think there's got to be costing done on what's being proposed to date. I would guess that the task force costing is well out of date. I don't know what it would be today, so I don't want to throw figures at you, but we know there's been close to an 80% increase in construction costs over the last 5 years, and that's how old that information is, right? It's 3 to 5 years old at this point. So we really do need to come up with what that looks like. What are the costs, and how is it actually going to get funded?
And the federal provincial dollars are a possibility, but again, you're squeezed in lots of directions too, because you've got the possible expansion of Sadlon Arena at a price tag, I think, of $40 million, and you'll hear from other people that say, "Wait a minute, I want my road paved." So there's a lot of juggling and a lot of thinking here, right?
100%. And look, we've increased the DERF, the Infrastructure Renewal Fund, specifically for roads. We are informing staff that we want that money to be spent in the existing boundaries of the city, not towards growth in the annexation lands, because that's where those tax dollars have come from. They need to fund the existing infrastructure. The Sadlon Arena, I think we need to come up with a plan. If it's going to happen, it needs to be a plan that's self-funded. So whatever that looks like, we'll have to work through. And in terms of, the downtown, we have to find out, performing arts facility, the open market, like these things, they're big picture items that require big picture money. And so we need to work through on how to get that in place. Right now, there's, I think, about either $5 million or $7.5 million set aside for Performing Arts Center, which we know is going to cost in excess of $50 million. So it's just, we're not there yet.
Big doings this weekend for Barrie's Season Center for Grieving Children. Its biggest fundraising event of the year, the Tender Hearts Gala and auction, raising money needed to continue offering more than a shoulder to children and families in need of support. Here again is our MJ with the Season Center's Lisa Spinks.
You guys have your big annual event coming up. Always a really big deal for you guys. Tell me about Tender Hearts.
Okay, so this is our 27th annual Tender Hearts Gala, and our theme this year is Denim and Diamonds. And we've got a great lineup of activities going on for the event. We've got Memphis Mud is playing, we've got a live auction, we've got an online silent auction, so that's another way for your listeners to get involved, or your readers.
Do you have any set plans of how much you would love to raise this year? You guys do things throughout the year, but this is your big one.
Yeah, this is our signature event. So we are hoping to raise over $100,000 this year.
Now, you're saying a little bit about what we can expect at the gala. You've always sort of had your mainstays of things that are going to happen there, but is there anything different to expect this year?
Oh, this year this is a really good point. This year, every ticket purchase has a chance to win a trip for two to Nashville, USA. So that's new. Yeah.
For anyone who's not familiar, we do have like a lot of people moving into Barrie all the time. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the work that you guys do.
Yeah. So Season Center's been around for 28 years, and we support children through grief. So children are often the forgotten mourners when a loved one dies, and what we know is that they need support because they feel isolated in their grief. And statistically, I think it's 1 in 14 children will experience the death of a loved one by the time they turn 18. So it's about one child in every 2 classrooms that will experience grief in that way. And so we offer a peer support program for them, so they know that they're not alone and that they can connect with other kids who have gone through something similar.
The gala, when is it taking place, and how can people get tickets?
So the gala takes place on Friday, April 28th. If people want to participate either in the online auction or getting tickets, they can go to grievingchildren.com/gala.
Barrie Baycats are prepping in the Dominican, getting ready for the new ball season. One, the Baycats president, Josh Matlow, thinks they can ride to another championship. He's with our Will Konken.
Another season coming up for you and the Baycats. What were your priorities for the club this offseason?
I had a few pieces. We were rebuilding the last couple of years, and we had a lot of young talent, but we didn't know what we had with them. We learned a lot in the last 2 years, and then now we know what we have. We're not rebuilding anymore. We're going to be making a push for a championship this year. So we added a few pieces, some big bats and some good pitching, so that we're able to contend. Last year we had commitment issues. Guys have lives, and that's the reality of the league. But we needed a rotation. We had import issues. Some of the players couldn't make certain games, and it just became a ripple effect that affected us in our playoff run. So I think this year it's having a full roster, having full-time players, having a full-time rotation, having full-time imports, getting them here early, but a lot more consistency this year.
How about for the fans wise? Are there any special nights going on? Off air, you were kind of mentioning about just setting up all of that.
Yeah, there's quite a few theme nights. I think there's about 8 on top of our Junior Baycats that we did last year. This year there'll be 6 Junior Baycats games opposed to 5. We will be announcing the theme nights, but there are some that we've never done before that we're excited to announce, be a part of, and promote. So I guess we'll have to wait for that.
Some big news for you guys. You're heading down to the Dominican Republic for spring training.
Yeah, so this was an idea I had in 2020, actually, and this was something we spoke about internally within the organization to do. Being a new team, we thought it would be a good idea to go down, spend some time together, play some baseball, see what we got basically going into the season. Again, we had, I think it was 30 new players with 3 guys who played for the Baycats previous. So, but then COVID happened, and that wasn't really a thing. So we wanted to do it last year. It was still a little bit shaky on the COVID and the traveling and the restrictions. So this year we decided to do it, and we followed through with it, and we're just very excited.
Awesome.
We're excited to go down there, spend some time with each other, with some beautiful weather and some good baseball, and really just kind of take in the whole baseball culture down there.
What does the itinerary kind of look like for the trip? You're going to be playing some games, like you said, and then I think you also bringing down some equipment as well?
Yeah, so we're bringing down 3 to 4 duffel bags of equipment. We're going to be going to a handful of baseball academies down there. We rented a team bus each day. The first couple days we're going to be, going off on the team bus. We're going to go to these academies prior to going to the stadium, meet a few kids, hopefully play some catch, and if
it's going to go a long way. It's not just sending equipment to the Dominican that we've done the last few years since we started for the love of the game equipment drive. We sent down duffel bags and rain barrels worth of stuff, and it's really amazing when we get the pictures, but I can't imagine the feeling it's going to be when we actually hand it to them personally and get to see their faces and, like I said, get to play catch with them with their glove for the first time. I think it's going to be a really cool baseball experience, not only for myself, but the guys that are going down. I think they know what they're signing up for, and they're pretty excited too.
Going back to the games that will be played, a lot of talent, like you were kind of mentioning down in the Dominican. Are you looking for some competitive matches for your guys?
Yeah, so the team we're playing is a collection of former pro players, which is going to really push us to the limits and see what we're capable of, but also to, maybe humble us to say, hey, this is where we're at prior to the season, making sure we can get ready. But it's going to be a collection from the local talent that's there. They're all on different teams in the summer, but they've all come together. They grew up in La Romana. La Romana is the hometown of our current player, Brandon Fianfonte. So he has all these baseball connections. And when I brought it up, just saying, hey, we're thinking of going down, he's like, well, can we please go to La Romana? Because we could play at the stadium. I know the coach, and we can kind of get a few of the logistics worked out there. And he helped a ton. So it was a really nice connection for us, and it really made it happen. And it's kind of a dream we had that's starting to come true.
Things were meant to be. And then home opener is on May 18th against the Maple Leafs. What do you want to say to the listeners?
Well, we're hoping that we have all our imports by then. We have a full rotation and a full bench, and we're hoping to start strong. We have, believe it's 5 out of the first 6 games are at home. And we're looking to start off hot and stay hot, and that's the idea. So again, consistency, commitment, and a strong team this year.
Been a couple of years since the Baycats' string of 6 championships in a row came to an end. And that's the end of our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, MJ, and Will for chipping in, to Matt Ladder for connecting the dots, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360 and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.